Hello, everybody, and welcome to another tactile strategy video. We're trying something a little different today. Again, kind of continuing on this thread of trying to help people learn the strategy of tactile. Tactile is a fun, abstract strategy engine building game. Very simple rules, but kind of like chess, got a lot of complexity in terms of the strategy of the game. It just went live on BGA basically yesterday, and tons of people have been playing. So I wanted to kind of hop on that train and continue these kind of strategy discussions to try to help people help wrap their heads around that strategy and kind of think through how they can improve their play and kick everybody's butt on BGA. Okay. So I think it's a little tough if I just kind of talk about strategy. It's kind of hard to conceptualize. Maybe it's a little boring. So I figured we could do something a little different today, and I'm going to actually put up a tactile board, and it's going to be the first move of the game, and we're going to kind of break it down step by step. I'm going to give you guys a chance to try to figure out what is the best approach to solve the board, and then I'll kind of break it down how I would solve it. We don't have an engine here to really test if it's true, but I will tell you that I've got over 300 games of tactile under my belt. I feel very confident that I could give you some tips and have them be helpful for you in your game. Okay. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. So what we have here is kind of an opening layout for tactile. In tactile, as you might recall, you score diagonally, you try to cross the board diagonally. So here we have red player in the lower left-hand corner versus green player in the upper right-hand corner. In this situation, you are the player, you are red. Okay, so you're starting in the bottom left-hand corner and you're trying to cross the board diagonally to score both your pawns in the green corner. Okay, so this is, and then you got the card market over to the left, and this is kind of how the board has been randomized. So what I have over here to the right are a couple basic questions. When you start every game of tactile, this is the first questions you want to be asking yourself. Generally, tactile is not a good game for you to kind of just start doing stuff and then see what happens. You actually want to kind of come up with a strategy from the very beginning and kind of think about how you want to approach this entire game. And then as the game goes on, you're going to kind of react and pivot and adjust and go from there. But if you just kind of start doing stuff, that's where you kind of run into trouble. Tactile in a competitive setting moves very, very quickly. So you need to have a plan and basically be working toward it the entire time. Otherwise, your opponent is going to have a plan and they're going to kick your butt. Okay. So, what are the first four questions we want to be asking ourselves? Well, the first question you want to ask yourself is what is the best two color pathway that I can pick? Okay, so looking at this board, you've got four colors to choose from. If you were to pick two colors, are there any continuous pathways from your base in the red corner to the opponent's base in the green corner that you see that you might want to follow? And then those would be the colors that you would buy cards of, right? So do you see any two color pathways? Anything kind of stand out to you going from red to green corner? The second is as you think about those pathways and you think about this card market we see here to the left, what are the first two cards that you want to buy? Most importantly, what's the first card that you want to buy? And bear in mind the cost of the card, right? The cost is at the bottom. So to even depending, maybe you want to buy a particular card, you will also have to kind of position yourself to get the right resources to buy that card. So what cards do you want to potentially buy? And kind of how would that align with your two color pathway strategy? Okay. The third piece is, all right, we're thinking about a two color pathway strategy. Are there any critical choke points that you're going to need to look out for? Are there any areas you might want to secure early because they could be a painful thing if you don't have them? All right. As we think about that two color process. And then the final piece is you have an opponent. Looking at this board, what's your opponent going to do? Right? Because you can't just think about your strategy in a vacuum. You should also be prepared that your opponent is going to try to oppose you. What are they likely to do? And then what might you want to have as kind of a backup plan if plan A doesn't work? Okay, I'm going to go ahead, take a second, pause the video, think it through, try to answer these four questions, and then I'm going to come in and kind of answer them. Okay, hopefully you got a kind of answers for these four questions. I'm going to go ahead and tell you how I'd approach this game. So the first piece is what is the best two colors for you to pick? Hopefully everybody got this. I mean, blue green seems super obvious. Look at this pathway that you basically have going from your corner all the way to green. Basically, if you follow blue-green, it'll take you all the way there. You just have this one little red tile to cross in the very, very beginning. And because it's so early on in the process, it's very unlikely that your opponent will be able to oppose you. If it was later on in the process, that would be more of a threat because that means your opponent will have more cards, more power, more ability to oppose you. Having to cross random colors in the very beginning, not too big of a deal. So blue-green stands out to me as the best pathway as I look at this board, especially when you consider the card market has a lot of blue cards. Anything with blue is going to be a little bit easier since blue is already in the market. So blue-green being the strongest color pathway, feeding into the fact that there's a ton of blue cards, this seems like a really strong starting play. Now, another color pathway you might have chosen could have been maybe red-yellow. If we look at the bottom of the map, red-yellow actually also kind of goes from the red corner to the green corner. However, there aren't as many red and yellow cards, so that makes it a little weaker off the bat. And then the second piece is that it actually has a gap later in the pathway. You see there's a blue-green kind of blocking point, choke point, closer to the green base. That would be much harder to cross given that it is later on in your journey, right? Not to mention, to get to red yellow, it's actually a little bit harder in the beginning. So harder in the beginning, harder in the end, not as many cards in the market, not as good of a path. Also an option, but not as good, right? I really think blue-green is definitely the right answer in this case. Okay. Second piece, what cards would you buy? I think the obvious answer here is you're going to want this blue gain first. You almost always want to get a gain first. I would say 60% of the time you probably want to be getting a gain as your very first card. If you don't have a gain, you will lose the late game against anybody who does get a gain and kind of knows how to play. When you're playing total beginners, like, I don't know, you can kind of do whatever you want. You'll probably beat somebody if you know how to combo your cards. But in a regular game against players who know what they're doing, you absolutely have to have a gain so that you have potential to control the late game. Okay. So what makes this blue gain so powerful is one, it's the only blue gain. And we're talking blue-green being the main pathway. There's no green gain. There's only one blue gain. That makes this really, really valuable. Second, as red player, it costs red and green to buy this blue gain. You have to cross red and green to get to a blue tile. So it's kind of, it works perfectly into your strategy. It's the perfect resource cost. It's the only one of gain of the colors that you're interested in. That makes this gain very, very valuable. You absolutely want to secure this first at all costs, right? And then once you get your blue gain, the next thing you'd probably want to do is pick up a move. I usually recommend within the first three cards, no matter what the situation, you always want a gain and a move. I also think this push would be valuable, right? Another blue card, a little bit more diversity in this area, but you want that move because it'll help you set up your gain, right? So that's why you always want to gain and a move in the beginning because the gain gives you the resources and the move gets you that flexibility to consistently set up your gain, okay? So I think, and what's nice is there's two blue moves, which means if you rush for the gain and let's say your opponent takes one of the blue moves because you beat them to the gain, there's still another blue move for you to pick up. And both of these also cost red and yellow, which are common resources near your starting position. So I think very obviously you'd want a gain and a blue move as your starting cards. And then from there, maybe a blue push, maybe another blue move, hopefully get a green card in there. I don't see any green yet, but once you start buying stuff, a green card would probably come up. That's kind of how I would approach building for this board. Okay. What about choke points? What about critical places on this map to look out for? If you look at the blue-green pathway, you'll see there is this one place later on in the board, this one blue tile I've highlighted in yellow here, and it's boxed in by red tiles. It makes it a choke point, right? In order to follow this blue-green pathway and eventually score, you will have to cross through this bottleneck. And if you don't have any red moves or red cards, going around could be very, very painful, especially given that it's later on in your pathway. Your opponent's going to have more cards, more ability to stop you. That makes this a choke point, and that makes this a critical position on the board. So for that reason, actually, picking up a blue push would be also valuable early on because you're probably going to need to fight with your opponent over this choke point. Given how close it is to your opponent's area, they're going to probably secure it before you. So you need to be prepared to battle it out over this choke point to eventually secure it so that you have safe passage to go score. Okay, so knowing that choke point is there, you either want to move quickly to try to secure it. Given its location, you probably won't get there in time, so you want to be prepared to fight. So your best starting cards are probably a blue move, a blue gain, and a blue push, so that you're prepared to kind of battle it out for this point. What's nice though is I do see 3 blue tiles right next to this choke point. That's a good safe zone for you to kind of position yourself where you can kind of cycle the blue and continue to farm resources as you get yourself in position. So even if they box you out at that choke point, it's a good place for you to farm and build up your power to potentially overwhelm and push through this choke point. Okay. Now, the last piece you want to consider is your opponent, right? So, what is your opponent likely to do? Well, given that the blue-green pathway is the strongest pathway on the board, your opponent is probably also going to go for it, which makes competing for this blue gain absolutely critical. It is such a valuable card in this lineup. I think whoever gets that blue gain has a much higher chance of actually winning the whole game. That's how important that one card is, right? You both are going to fight for it. You both have red and green next to your home bases. So you both have pretty much an equal chance of getting it. So whoever is going to go first in this game is going to get that blue gain, right? So knowing that, you actually might need to be prepared to pivot, because if your opponent goes first, they will get the blue gain and they will start doing all this stuff. So you actually might need to pivot to this yellow gain. And we see this like yellow highway down here. Whoever doesn't get the blue gain is probably going to get the yellow gain. And then this yellow pathway is going to be very valuable. I put a green arrow there saying your opponent might go for it. But it just really depends on who gets the blue gain first. The other person's going to have to pivot to the yellow gain and is going to have to take the lower, less quality pathway. Now, the flip side is if the opponent steals the blue gain, then maybe you want to be trying to fight for this choke point as a defensive posture, or at least position yourself outside it to block them, to try to box them in and limit access to blue, because that's where this choke point is critical. Either they get it and they stop you from scoring, or you get there and you stop them from getting access to blue. So even if they beat you to the blue gain, you can actually stop them from getting any value from it while you take advantage of this yellow highway. Okay? So yeah, so that's a good board analysis that kind of breaks down how you want to think about the game. As you can see, you actually are doing a lot of the game strategy at the very beginning. And then it's tactile, so things are going to change. The board's going to change, or the cards are going to change. You're always going to have to be ready to pivot, but it's always a good idea to be thinking in terms of these pathways, these choke points, what your card plan is going to be, what your opponent's probably going to be thinking. You want to have all these things in mind from the beginning to the end of the game. That's going to really help you set yourself up so that you can win the game in the best way possible. Okay. I hope this board analysis was fun. As a reminder, TacTile's on BGA, so if you want to check it out, play some games with us, it's super fun. It's free. Just sign up. You just make an account and search for TacTile and come join us and come play. If you want to support the game, it is available on Amazon, or for our outside the US friends, it is available through Gamefound. I'll have links in the description to all of these sites, so go ahead, check it out, and play some TacTile. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your night.